Okay, so today we're diving into this really fascinating essay by J.R. Morris. And what it does is it gives us a completely different way to look at the crazy times we're living in. Instead of getting bogged down in the day-to-day news, it tells us to zoom out, look at these huge historical patterns, and get this, rethink what something like prophecy actually means.
So the essay kicks off with a question that I bet has crossed your mind maybe more than once. It's that feeling, that feeling that we're living on a razor's edge. Is this moment, is our moment, somehow uniquely dangerous, more fragile than what came before?
Right. And the first thing you might think is, well, hold on. There's this thing historians call presentism bias, right? The idea that every single generation thinks their time is the most important, the most critical in all of history. And yeah, there's always someone saying the sky is falling. But Morris says, okay, let's put that feeling of just general alarm aside for a second. Let's look for specific, concrete, structural things, mechanisms, that could point to real system-wide risk.
And this is where we get to the real heart of the essay's argument. It proposes that we should look at old prophetic texts, not as some kind of magic, supernatural fortune-telling, but as a kind of cultural technology. Think of it like a warning system, an architecture of alerts that our ancestors built for us.
So let's be really clear about this. When Morris talks about prophecy, it has nothing to do with predicting the future. It's all about recognizing patterns from the past. It's basically a civilization's fire alarm. It's how our ancestors took these incredibly painful lessons they learned about what makes a society fall apart and encoded them into the toughest format they had, these really powerful stories and visions that would last for centuries.
Yeah, this quote really nails it. The essay uses this term cultural semiotics. It sounds complicated, but the idea is actually pretty simple. Imagine a doctor looking at a patient's symptoms to figure out what's wrong. In this framework, the prophecies are the symptoms. They're the signs and symbols that point to a much deeper, structural problem in the body of a society. It is pure pattern recognition. It's not a crystal ball.
Okay, so once you start looking at things through this lens, you begin to see these echoes, these rhymes from the past showing up at our present. You know that old saying, history doesn't repeat itself, but it often rhymes? Well, let's dive into some of the historical parallels that the essay brings up. Okay, check this out. This quote is from a really old apocryphal text called 2 Esdras, and it describes this vision of a massive empire, symbolized by a great eagle that starts to splinter from the inside out. It talks about a quick succession of leaders whose reigns just end abruptly. Now, again, Morris is not saying this is some literal prediction. The point is that, as a piece of cultural semiotics, as a pattern, that's a pretty striking one to find, isn't it? And look, you don't have to buy into any of that to see the pattern. The essay points to a really powerful, totally secular parallel that historians have been writing about forever, the cycle of imperial overextension.
I mean, the classic example, the best case study we have, is the Roman Empire. Think about the crisis of the 3rd century. Rome was fighting wars on multiple fronts that it just couldn't afford. In a span of only 50 years, they went through at least 26 different emperors, or claimants to the throne. I mean, can you imagine? And eventually, the most basic thing, the civic trust that holds a civilization together, it just disintegrated.
But the really key thing to grasp here isn't the specifics of what happened back then. It's the mechanism underneath it all. This is the pattern that keeps showing up. First, people lose faith in their core institutions. Second, the leaders figure out that keeping the conflict going, stoking the fires, is actually better for their own political careers. And finally, the regular people on the street start to think, you know what? Defending this system costs me more than I'm getting out of it. That's the breakdown.
So, how does this ancient dynamic connect to us today? Well, the essay argues that our world has taken these old recurring patterns and poured gasoline on them. We've added a powerful new ingredient, a great accelerant, that just makes everything happen so much faster.
And here's a perfect, tragic example of what Morris calls compound risk. The war in Syria, it didn't just appear out of nowhere. It started with a domino effect. Step 1. The worst drought in the region's recorded history hits. Step 2. That environmental collapse forces millions of people from their farms into the cities. This creates massive social pressure. And then, step 3. That pressure cooker is ignited by political violence, and the whole thing explodes.
And this is such a critical point. Environmental breakdown isn't some separate issue that happens over here while political instability happens over there. No, it actively fuels it. It is the accelerant. It's like throwing a match on all the social and political kindling that's already lying around.
Okay, so
We've got these ancient warnings encoded in stories. We've got clear historical examples of how things fall apart, and we've got this modern accelerant speeding everything up. So the real question, the big one, is what does this all mean for us, right here, right now? What are we supposed to do with this information?
The essay leaves us with one last, really useful concept to think about: a society's warning architecture. These are just the systems and institutions we build to be our alarm bells. They're the things that are supposed to scream at us when our foundational assumptions, our core principles, are eroding faster than we can fix them.
So ancient societies had their prophets. The Romans had their great historians. What's ours? What's our warning architecture today? Well, it's things like our scientific institutions, a free press, an independent court system, the whole idea of public intellectual debate. And here's the really sobering part of the essay's conclusion. Every single one of those systems is under simultaneous, intense pressure right now, more so than at any time since the 1930s.
And all of this really builds up to a question that the philosopher Hannah Arendt puts so well. It's not about any one single crisis. It's about the total, cumulative weight of all of them happening at once. The real question is, how much instability can a complex civilization actually absorb before what she called coordination failure sets in? Before we just lose the ability to work together to solve our problems?
So, look, at the end of the day, this essay isn't about saying the world is ending. It's not. It's about trying to understand the world we're actually living in. And its final message is really a challenge, directly to us. This moment, with all its pressures and patterns, is asking something of us. And the first step is just to listen, to pay attention to the smoke on the horizon. The next step, well, that's deciding how we're going to answer.